Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodash, and double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, salutations, and blessings to the house of David, which is the elect. And I had mentioned this last night, this article that I want to go over, so I'm just doing that real briefly. Lord willing to feed the sheep, of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, to keep you informed on, the times that we're in and the things that are, the Lord is having take place that, ultimately shows, the end of this age, the end of this world, and the return of Yahweh Shai, and that's everything that, as believers, we are supposed to be looking out for, paying attention to, so that when this day comes, it doesn't take us unawares, all right, not being overcharged with the cares of this life, right, with the drunkenness of this world, being fully, rooted in the word of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai and seeing, how the Lord is making good on his promise, all right, which, for us is a blessing, all right. That's why Yahweh Shai said, when you start to see these things, come to pass, to look up for your redemption draweth nigh. All right. So all of these things that are happening is just signs of our redemption drawing nigh. So getting right into this article, it says U.S. Iran head toward second round of indirect nuclear talks. Okay, so and that's supposed to be taking place tomorrow, which today is April 17th. All right, Friday, and tomorrow being Saturday, April 18th. It says the next round of negotiations between the United States and Iran aimed at resolving a decade-long nuclear standoff is set to take place Saturday in Rome. All right, ironically, okay, that this talk would take place in Rome, knowing that this second beast, right, the beast that came out of the earth that exerciseth all of the power of the first beast, is basically, the revival of the Roman Empire. Okay, so the Lord has it playing out that this talk, right, Lord willing, it be the case. Go south, go sour. Which when you read this article, basically it lays out how the two sides are on completely opposing different sides. They have completely different expectations on what this is going to lead to. So it doesn't seem, and we know by way of prophecy, it doesn't seem as if this talk tomorrow would bear any agreements, from the U.S. or Iran. So it's no coincidence that the Lord is having this take place in Rome. When we know that this place is, the modern day Rome, or the Roman Empire, coming back, through the Renaissance period. And ultimately, this is the kingdom, right, that the Lord is going to destroy. All right. Even as Paul said, that the iniquity of how did he put it? The mystery of iniquity doeth already work, right? Which he was speaking at that time of the Roman Empire, all right. And we know that iniquity, right, is still at work right now, but it has its end. Okay, and that's the time that we are coming into, which is why you're seeing all of these talks of war, right, nuclear war, between these countries, which is all prophetically designed, taking place. So it says, following earlier confusion over the venue, Iranian foreign minister, and that may be also, some type of enchantment, some type of because those places that Esau has, are high points, right? High places in the earth that he sets up, on the left hand side. So the fact that they are having it happening and having this talk happen in Rome could be Esau trying to stand with his enchantments, right? Being wearied in his counsels, but nonetheless, none of that is going to pan out for him. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas confirmed the location Wednesday in an interview with state-run Press TV, adding that Oman will continue to mediate the discussions. Aragachi, or however you pronounce his name, and the U.S. President Donald Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, which I believe he's a small hat, if I'm not mistaken, held the first round of indirect talks in Muscat last weekend, where Omani diplomat Badar shuttled messages between the delegations. A spokesman for Iran's foreign minister had earlier told state news agency IRNA that the talks would resume in Muscat, but Press TV later reported that the venue had been changed to the Italian capital. The Epoch Times has reached out to the U.S. State Department for more information. While both sides described the initial talks as constructive, tensions quickly resurfaced over whether Iran should be allowed to continue enriching uranium to weapons grade levels. And the whole talking back and forth and them saying it being constructive, that's something that takes place in the world history, right, where you have two countries who may be at odds with each other, right? And, yes, they'll send their delegations and, to try to make concessions to see whether or not there could be a way that they can avoid an actual military, conflict. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, remember, as the scripture says, that the Lord, right, he dealeth in the kingdoms of men, right? The book of Daniel chapter 4 verse 17, it says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the bases of men. See? So it is the Most High that ruleth in the kingdoms of men, and he is the one that sets up, kings, puts down kings, sets up nations, and puts down nations. All right, so the fact that we understand what the will of the Lord is, we know that this conflict between America, United States, which is Babylon the Great, okay, and along with its ally, the 48ers, the Amalekites, going against the Iranians, which are the Persians, the Russians, which, that area is Gog, all right, or also known as the Medes, that is going to only grow, right, and get to a point where they're going to face, militarily against each other. But something I had just mentioned about, the talks and how, the two sides would try to have these talks to try to settle disputes. When you read in the book of First Kings, let's see, is it the 19th? Let's see, where is it at? Might be a little bit afterwards. Yeah, First Kings, the 20th chapter. Okay, and this is a time period where after King Solomon, ruled, and the kingdom was divided between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And this particular time period is when Ahab was in rulership. And during his time, the power that Israel had over its fellow, surrounding nations was waning. So the Lord, was allowing these various different countries to test, right, and come up against the authority of the kingdoms of Israel, right? Whether it be the north, or this particular is speaking about the northern kingdom. So you had Ben-Hadad, right, which was the king of Assyria during his time. So let's read this. First Kings 20 verse 1. It says, and Ben-Hadad, the king of Assyria, gathered all his hosts together, and there were 32 kings with him, and horses and chariots, and he went up and besieged Samaria and warred against it. And he sent messengers. So that's what Steve Witkoff would be for the United States, and Abbas, the Iranian foreign minister, would be for Iran, would be messengers. It says, to Ahab, king of Israel, into the city, and said unto him, thus saith Ben-Hadad, right? So although these messengers were sent, it was really the word of Benadad, right? Verse 3, thy silver and thy gold is mine, right? Because at this point, you Benadad, which was the king of Assyria, had conquered, and as we read, it laid siege to Samaria and warred against it. So it had already taken over certain lands and areas in the northern kingdom, right? So this is why he's saying this: thy silver is and thy gold is mine, thy wives also and thy children, even the goodliest are mine. Okay. So basically he was saying, I got all of your possessions, not speaking directly about Ahab's wives, because we know that Jezebel was Ahab's wife, but speaking about the women, and the choice women of that region, of that area, was basically under the Assyrian Ben-Hadad's domain. It says, and the king of Israel answered and said, my lord, O king, according to thy saying, I am thine, and all that I have. So basically, Ahab was saying, yeah, like you got me. I'm under tributary to you. The messengers came again and said, thus speaketh Benhadad, saying, although I have sent unto thee, saying, thou shalt deliver me thy silver and thy gold and thy wives and thy children, yet I will send my servants unto thee tomorrow about this time, and they shall search thine house and thy houses of thy servants, and it shall be that whatsoever is pleasant in thine eyes, they shall put in their hands and take away. See? So in verse 6 in NLT, it says, but about this time tomorrow I will send my officials to search your palace and the homes of your officials, and they will take away everything you consider valuable. Verse 7, continuing in the NLT, then Ahab summoned all the elders of the land and said unto them, look how this man is stirring up trouble. I already agreed with his demand that I gave him my wives and children and silver and gold. Don't give in to any more demands, all the elders and the people advise. So Ahab told the messengers from Benhadad, saying, say this to my lord the king, I will give you everything you asked for the first time, but I cannot accept this last demand of yours. So the messengers returned to Benhadad with that response, right? So when you read on, ultimately, it became a conflict, right? And because Ahab didn't oblige, or acquiesce to Benhadad's request, it turned out to, they ended up turning to war, right? And then when you read what happens, Ahab in the northern kingdom ends up, defeating Benhadad in that war. But I brought that out to say that you have the same thing happening right now, because when you look at that first agreement, which Obama did back in 2015, the JCPOA, all right, or JPCOA, however it is, the acronym for it. I think it's JPCOA. Iran agreed to those terms, right, that America basically came up with other countries. I think China was involved, and other European countries. Iran agreed to those terms. But then when Trump came into office, right, in 2016, he tore that agreement up. So now Iran is in a position to where, they're saying, well, that agreement that we gave, that we agreed with you before, you as Americans, because Iran is not looking at, oh, just Trump, Obama did this and Trump did this. No, they're looking at it as a whole of, okay, that's America's administrations, that's America's doing, right? So the fact that Trump came and tore up that agreement that Iran made with Obama before, now they're trying to come with new terms and new agreements, and Iran is looking at it like, okay, yeah, we can do that, but it ain't going to be, anything like how it was before, and we're going to read why. So just want to lay that out. So going back, it says the disagreements follows a series of statements from Witkoff, who made clear that the presidents expect Iran, so Witkoff being the messenger, and he said that he's making clear what the message, or what what the king of Babylon, which right now would be Trump, what he wants. It says a leading state sponsor of terrorism to fully abandon enrichment as a condition for any agreement. So they want them to fully abandon nuclear enrichment. Okay, not just limit their enrichment as what the terms of agreement was during the Obama administration back in 2015, but they're saying, now we want you to fully abandon it. A deal with Iran will only be completed if it is a Trump deal, he wrote on Tuesday on X, so a couple days ago. So he said a deal will only happen if it's what Trump, the deal that Trump wants in totality. Any final agreement must set a framework for peace, stability, and prosperity in the Middle East, meaning that Iran must stop and eliminate its nuclear enrichment and weaponization program. It is imperative for the world that we create a tough, fair deal that will endure, and that is what President Trump has asked me to do, right, as a messenger. So we just had the backdrop of what happened with Benadad and Ahab, right? Messengers came, they said that, yeah, we agreed to this, but now he wants this. Ahab says, all right, I'm going to talk to the council, the elders. They say, nah, don't give in. Ahab said, nah, we're not giving them that. Then the messengers of Benadad brought that back to Benadad, and then what comes from that? War, right? Which I didn't read that part, but you can go and read it in 1 Kings, the 20th chapter. It says his post marked a shift from the comments the day prior to Fox News interview, where he suggested that he would focus on capping Iran's uranium refinement levels at 3.67%, the level suitable for civilian nuclear reactors. That limit was a key component of the 2015 Iranian nuclear deal, which the Trump administration abandoned, saying it was unenforceable and ineffective in curbing Iran's nuclear ambitions. Argachi responded Wednesday by rejecting any compromise on the enrichment issue. You see? So they're saying that we're not abandoning any, right, or compromising any of their views or their desires when it comes to their enrichment issues. Iran's enrichment program is a real and genuine matter, and we are ready to build trust regarding potential concerns. But the issue of enrichment is non-negotiable. Aragchi told reporters after a cabinet meeting. Aragchi added that he expects Wickoff to clarify his, quote, real positions at the negotiation table. Right, because this guy, Aragachi, also was accusing Wickoff of being, basically contradicting his statements, right? They're talking about they want to come to a deal, but then he's also saying that, nah, the only deal that we're going to do is what Trump wants. So that's contradictory. You can't come to a deal as if, can't come to a table if you're only going to come with what you want or nothing. You see, and that's the Daniel, the 7th chapter, that his look being more stout than his fellows, right? Trump is that man, we believe, that has that, the Lord put that energy, that spirit, that battery in his back to be very prideful, very stout, very non-negotiable when it comes to what he wants. Okay, and in the world that we live in, right, it's not as if America just has that power to just bully everybody into submission. Look at what's going on with China, right? Look at what's going on with Russia. Look at what's going on here in the Middle East, right? All three major stages that, America is involved in. Ahead of Rome's talk, Aragchi traveled to Moscow. Now, this is also where it gets interesting. Before the Rome talks, right? And I love that it's calling it the Rome talks, man. It is beautiful. Prophecy is just clearly just unfolding, unraveling everything the Lord is having just manifest right in front of us, man. And this is what the true prophets of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai would be talking about. This is what we would be warning about. Okay, not out here being a fucking Jerry Springer, sick talk show, airing out everybody's dirty laundry, and that just being the main focus of the ministry, man. Hey, the Lord is going to, well, the Lord is already manifesting who the true men of the Lord are, because the true men of the Lord will be doing what? Occupying in prophecy. Okay, it says ahead of Rome talks, Arakshi traveled to Moscow to deliver a written message from Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Okay, now when we go to prophecy, Ezekiel the 38th chapter, it tells you that Russia will be a guard unto the Persians, right? We don't even have to go get it because that's been brought out so many different times, but we may. Okay, let's see how the spirit goes. But the fact that the supreme leader of Iran wrote a written letter to Vladimir Putin ahead of these talks is very, very interesting. Russia, which possesses the world's largest confirmed nuclear arsenal, and that's for a reason, because those nukes, pursuant to Isaiah the 50th, fourth chapter, that the Lord created the smith that bloweth the cold and the fire, right? Let's pull it up. Isaiah 54, verse 16. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals and the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument, right? And that instrument, that word is weapon, right? In the NLT, I like it. It says, I created the blacksmith, right? Which is the modern day scientists, okay? These nuclear scientists who fans the coals beneath the forge and makes the weapons of destruction, right? Weapons of mass destruction, right? It says, for his work, I have created the waster to destroy. See? I have created the armies that destroy in the NLT. And what are those armies? Ultimately, it's those missiles. All right, when you read in the Joel, the 2nd chapter, where it tells you that, they're going to run up in the houses, right? They're not going to, fall against each other, right? They're not going to, anything that comes, nothing's going to stop it, from keeping its ranks, going to where it's meant to go, which ultimately is here in Babylon the Great. So the fact that Russia holds the largest confirmed nuclear arsenal is, prophecy being fulfilled, because as it says in the book of Jeremiah, that all they that bend the bow is going to shoot at her. Shoot at who? Babylon the Great. Has deepened. So Russia, who has all of this nuclear arsenal, has deepened military and economic ties with Iran, being a guard, since its conflict with Ukraine escalated into a full-blown war in February 2022. The Kremlin, described by Tehran and its strategic partner, has urged restraint last month after Trump warned of potential military retaliation if Iran fails on the diplomatic front. If the Iranians don't make a deal, they will be bombing, Trump told NBC, right? And March 30th. And that rhetoric right now, that you got talk saying, oh, he stopped, or he opposed the 48ers from, striking the nuclear facilities of Iran, right? That he's not in a rush to strike or bomb Iran. Well, you may not be in a rush, and he may have opposed it, but that's all just for the theatrics of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, and their will, okay? Because we know that once that happens, once Iran is attacked, things are going to speed up dramatically, okay? That third woe is going to come even more quickly. And that means that the other things that must happen must be fulfilled before the third woe. That means that those things are going to speed up even faster, i.e. the, Jacob's trouble, the persecution, right? And ultimately the mark of the beast, right? The charagma. It will be bombing the likes of which they will never seen before. There's a chance that if they don't make a deal, that I will do secondary tariffs on them like I did 4 years ago. So I'm going to jump down there. So yeah. So basically, the ultimatum, right? It's either make a deal or get bombed. And the fact that Iran saying that their um, enrichment program is non-negotiable, and Trump, Wyckoff, Trump's messenger said that unless they completely abandon their nuclear program, then there won't be no deal done. So we're at an impasse right now, and that leads to this. I got this breaking news just a couple minutes ago. Breaking: over 3 days, 10 U.S. heavy transport aircrafts landed in Nevatim base in Israel, delivering munition and heavy bombs to support Iran, the 48ers' preparations for a potential strike on Iran. Israeli Army radio. So it's clear that they are preparing for an attack. They're seeing that, yeah, what we want and what they want is not, going to come to a deal, right? And therefore, the only other option, as Trump just said, bombing. Okay, so then Iran sends a letter to Russia. Who knows what that letter says? Hey, we know we got this agreement. We support each other economically. We're part of the BRICS. We're going to need your help. Would you be a guard unto us? Putin may say, yeah, I will be a guard. And that's ultimately because that is the will of the Lord. You see, so we have all these things taking place, shaping up, manifesting right before our very eyes, right? And as the scripture says, that the end, right, is manifest. Let's pull that up. Where is that? Second Esdras chapter 9. Second Esdras chapter 9, verse start at the top. He answered, consider all these things very carefully. When you see that some of the signs I have told you about to appear. Salakia, when you see some of the signs I have told you about have appeared, which we have seen some of those signs, you will know that the time has come when the Most High, God, Yahweh, will bring judgment on the world he has created. And the men of the Lord, the prophets, right, the seers, we all are seeing these signs manifest. You don't have a man of the Lord that is saying that, yeah, we don't see none of these signs, right? We don't see, the judgments of the Heavenly Father. Now, the prophets are all in the same spirit of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai through the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, are all saying, yes, these signs are happening. So that means what? That it is a time when the Most High is bringing judgment on the world. There will be earthquakes, national rebellions, international intrigues, unstable leaders. Okay, you see Trump, that nigga's unstable as all hell, and confused rulers. When you see these things happening, you will know that they are what the God Most High has spoken about since the beginning of creation. The beginning and the end of everything that happens in this world are clear. The same is true about the world above. Wonders and miracles show the beginning of events, and mighty signs show when they end. Okay, and that is what we are seeing. We're seeing these signs that are showing the end of this age, right? The end is manifest. So, we're just blowing the trumpet, sounding the alarm, okay, so that the believers, the listeners, the sincere elect, are made aware of these times and know that, our salvation is nigh. So, stay watching, stay prayed up, as Peter said, for the end of all things is at hand, therefore watch and be sober. Okay, so with that, Lord willing, this was edifying unto the elect, giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Ruach HaKodesh. Shalom.